Good morning, dreamers. It is December 13th, 2023, and this is episode 14 of the Paul Green comedy PaulCast. Paul Green, comedian here, just checking in every day with all of you lovely people out there, discussing my journey as a comedian, as an actor in this crazy world. And just wanted to bring anybody along who's interested in listening on this journey and maybe perhaps provide some insight and some inspiration to anybody out there who has a dream and that is going for it or thinking about going for it, and just an opportunity to discuss what I'm learning and my struggles and victories, and hopefully perhaps that will provide some inspiration and maybe some guidance and just an opportunity for us to connect. So, man, 14 episodes. That's 2 weeks. I talked a little bit yesterday about just relishing in the little victories, the little wins. And it's really humbling to look at the legendary comedians in the world and just the body of work that they've put out. And maybe even be a little discouraging. I think of like Bill Burr. I listen to his podcast fairly regularly and realize that he's been doing a podcast, I think, since 2011, maybe even earlier. So it's like, man, he's been pumping out episodes for 12 years. Joe Rogan is well over 2,000 episodes. In each of those episodes, if you listen to Joe Rogan, they're really long. They're like 3-hour conversations. I'm just going, 2,000 episodes, 3 hours a piece. That's 60,000 hours, if my math is correct on that. No, 6,000. 2,000 times 3. Yeah. 6,000 hours of conversation. Really incredible. And they are successful, legendary comedians and have just put out such a body of work. So I think one of the big challenges of this whole kind of dream concept is, as much as we want to see what other comedians have done or other actors or performers or whatever your genre of dreaming is, and to be inspired by them, I think it's also equally as important to stay in your own lane and realize that you're not competing against anyone but yourself. I think Jordan Peterson talks about that. Probably not just him, but your only competition is you yesterday. And have you shown up today differently or better than how you showed up yesterday? And I think that's really important. Otherwise, I just don't think there would be any motivation to even try, because anytime you enter into any sort of marketplace, any sort of opportunity or job market, there's always going to be people who have already done it and have already done it better than you and longer than you. And so to step into any market immediately comparing yourself to other people and where they're at and where they got started and how much better they are than you or more experienced, it can shut down a dream real fast. And so that's the thing I have to keep reminding myself is, I didn't start doing this 10 years ago. I didn't start doing it in my late teens. I just watched a documentary on Chris Rock. I think he started at 17. I think Dave Chappelle was doing it maybe even younger than that. And they all moved to New York when they were really, really young and pretty quickly got some big opportunities. We're getting Saturday Night Live and we're getting movie deals and stuff in their early mid-20s. And, that wasn't my journey. That wasn't what happened to me. I didn't really even start dreaming until I was 34, 33. I didn't even start doing stand-up, and never really had that encouragement or that gumption that I would be somebody like that, be somebody who was a legendary performer or who would move to Hollywood and make it, quote unquote. And I didn't even have the gumption to try until I was in my early to mid 30s. So if I try to compare myself to any of those comedians, then it's not even, it's just a non-starter. I wouldn't even take step one if that's what I was attempting to do. And yet, in the small amount of time that I've really started my journey as a comedian, as a performer, and really going for my dreams and moving to LA, even though I was already 35 and had nothing going for me and no TV credits, no movie credits. I'd only been doing stand-up for a year. I maybe had 15 to 20 minutes of halfway decent material. I had no connections in LA, didn't know anybody. And I still went for it, and I wouldn't change that for the world. And no, I didn't get a big break. I didn't blow up. But there really is just something about doing it anyway and going for your dreams, just putting yourself in the game, putting yourself on the path, putting yourself in the journey to whatever degree or capacity you can, regardless of what your starting point is, or how far or ahead, behind or ahead you are of anybody else. It really isn't about that. It really is about your own personal journey and what it is that you're seeking to experience in life and go for in life. And really trying as much as possible, and I know it's so hard not to because we are tribal animals and we do biologically arrange ourselves in hierarchy, and at any given time we know who the boss is and we know who the leader is, and we know more or less, and we know who's better at something than we are. We know who the best athlete is, the best actor is, the best performer, with a little bit of subjective opinions in there, I'm sure. But, we know who's in the game. And looking at all that, just going, well, great. What's my role? And how can I compete against myself? And how can I improve what I'm doing? And how can I expand upon my own life experience, regardless of what anybody else is experiencing or going through? So that's just what I've been thinking about a lot today. I've had a couple conversations with other stand-up comedian friends of mine who have been in the game longer than I have, who are funnier than I am, had bigger opportunities, and, maybe didn't get a huge break. And, and they're on the same path too. So, be who you are, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Be who you are, where you are, and try to avoid the pitfall, which I have fallen into so many times, of comparing yourself to anybody else, unless it's motivating. But if there's any sort of discouragement because you don't have what the other person has, or you haven't accomplished what the other person has, then I would really strive to avoid going down those rabbit holes. And just trying to remind yourself that it's individual. It's an individual journey. I don't know what your individual path is, what your dream is, what your goal is, what your ambitions are. But whatever they are yours only. And there's no need or reason to compare yourself to what anybody else may or may not have already accomplished, as much as possible. But man, it's not an easy. It's not easy. At least it hasn't been easy for me. That's been a huge challenge of mine to, just be so consciously aware of how far down it feels I'm on the totem pole compared to so many others who have accomplished such great things, and being able to hear their stories and hear what happened to them and the big breaks that they got and the struggles and the challenges, and to hear all that, and to not somehow try to compare myself and my experiences and what I've had happen to me so far and not go, oh, wow, my trajectory hasn't been anywhere near the trajectory of a Chris Rock or a Kevin Hart or a Dave Chappelle or, name any, the Bill Burrs and any comedian that you know by name, has had a trajectory in their career that so far hasn't been consistent with the trajectory that I've experienced. And there really is something about being totally okay with that, learning to be okay with that, and just realizing that, hey, if big break is in the cards for me, it's going to be in the cards, but it's really more about me being on the journey regardless, and being okay with just having my journey be my journey and my experiences be my experiences, and whatever I'm able to shake loose and have happen in my life is what my individual journey is going to end up being. And that's okay. Really don't mean for these to sound so cheesy, self-talky, but maybe that's what the world needs, or at least that's what I need. So maybe that's why it seems that I'm kind of gearing my discussions towards that sort of energy. And if there's anybody out there who just needs to pick me up, that's what I would hope that I could do, at least for somebody, is to just give them a little pick me up and just say, hey, whatever's going down, whoever you're comparing yourself to, I get it. Compare yourself to yourself yesterday. And if there's an opportunity for improvement, if there is something that you are holding back on, if there's a fear, if there's a reservation, if there's something that's just keeping you back, and there's stuff that keeps all of us back, then my invitation is to see if you can compete against that in your own sphere, in your own journey, and try not to compete with, Chris Rock, because we're gonna lose, unless you're Will Smith. Actually, probably Will Smith probably ultimately ended up losing in that little scuffle in the end anyway. So that's my thoughts for you, everybody, today for December 13th, 2023, episode 14 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I love you all. Keep dreaming, everybody.